Good morning. Welcome to Master Strokes. Before I introduce the lovely gentlemen and technology leaders that I have with me, let me give a brief background on Master Strokes for those of you who may not be aware about it. Master Strokes is a series where we bring live cases of technology leaders who've been responsible for transformation in their organizations and continue to do so using technology. Today, I'm pleased to have with me Soumya Ghosh. He is the Executive Vice President and CTO at Tata AIA Life Insurance Limited. Thank you, Soumya, for joining us.
Thanks, Hoshi.
And I've got Rishi Arora of IBM. Rishi heads the financial services in India and banking and financial services for APAC, for the APAC region. Rishi, thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Let's kind of jump into the discussion right away. Soumya, first question to you. Tata is major player in the insurance space, and similar to all industries, the insurance space has seen rapid changes, due to changing customer preferences, regulatory requirements, technology. What are you seeing in this space? How are you all coping? What are the differences that technology has made to enable Tata AI?
Thanks, Hoshi. I think the customer has changed over the last decade or so. The customer today is far more aware, far more informed. The attention span of the customer has fallen off a cliff. The customer wants instant gratification. And the customer has rightfully so become extremely demanding. The regulator as well has started playing a very, very active role in how the industry shapes up. So I would say these are the two primary drivers that we are seeing, which is kind of driving transformation for the industry and for us, Tata AIA in particular. What are we doing about it? It begins and ends with the customer. We live, breathe customer. As long as we can fulfill what the customer wants of us, we will continue to be successful. We've had, a long journey where we've grown from 17th in the market to currently the 3rd, and we are still going places. And the reason is customer obsession at the core. So how do we find out what the customer wants, and how do we ensure that the customer gets what the customer wants is, the core. And as the conversation progresses, we'll speak more about specific initiatives. But customer centricity, I think, is at the heart of it. The second one is, when you want to kind of deal with customers, right, you also begin to realize there is no one shape, one size fits all for customers any longer. So you are continuously segmenting customers down to, micro segments, and you are dealing with customers at that micro segment stuff. So as you kind of do that, hyper-personalization kind of becomes extremely important, especially so when the attention span of the customer is very limited. You've got that window of opportunity to make an impact of the customer and make the customer fulfill whatever you want or the customer needs to do. And you miss it. So hyper-personalization is extremely key. Lastly, on the regulation stuff, compliance cannot be post facto. It needs to be baked in your software development lifecycle processes, because with the pace at which change is happening and you are deploying change, we wouldn't have the time to kind of look at compliance as post facto and have a release not go because you're not compliant. So shift left of compliance is the other one which we are actively doing in Tata AIA.
Wonderful. Rishi, IBM, more than a century old, and you'll have the advantage of working across the globe with different companies. And since we're discussing insurance, let's talk about the insurance space. Huge changes happening there. What are you seeing with your customers? How are they adapting and adopting these technology changes? And what is IBM seeing in that space?
Yep. Thanks, Hoshi. Thanks, Soumya. We work with the insurance industry across the globe. We work with insurance clients. In India, we work with, Tata AIA as well. What we are seeing, right? What we are seeing is, our clients using technology to get to newer segments, to get to, newer markets. Soumya alluded to the point of, customer. He alluded to the point of, personalization, and he also spoke about the regulations, right? So what we are seeing in the markets, right? The offerings becoming more personalized, the offerings becoming more customer centric, the processes, moving from product centered to customer centered. So yes, customer is at the center of everything. To be fair, regulators are playing a leading role in this transformation. Regulators have become, more conducive to business growth, and that is enabling the insurance industry to kind of customize products more so than ever, right? That's the big change which is, happening in the industry. We do research, on a very regular basis. So if I have to quote some data, IBM's Institute of Business Value says that data is actually driving this change in the industry. When we talk to the respondents in the insurance industry, 39%, and I'm sure this number is going to grow exponentially. 39% of the respondents believe that data is creating, or data and AI is creating real customer value and real business value. When we talk to chief execs, right, about 71% of chief execs believe that organizations which are investing in Gen AI capabilities are organizations which will, thrive. And I'm talking particularly about the insurance industry. So the trends which we see is more around personalization, more around, more around the customer. Let me also briefly talk about the impact it has made on operations per se, right? The processes are getting more automated. And with the processes getting more automated, the impact is on the turnaround time for customers, right? Turnaround time for customers is reducing, which is directly impacting the customer experience, right? Because of the automation happening, the productivity and efficiency in the insurance industry is improving. Last but not the least, let me talk about sustainability. I think the efforts around sustainability are in the infancy stage as far as the industry is concerned. But if you look at the regulations coming around, where all listed organizations will have to mandatorily report their ESG data going forward, right? I believe the efforts in this area is going to really, improve. A lot of investments are going to be driven in this area. So if I have to just summarize, I think it's a very interesting time for us as consumers of insurance products, right? It is very interesting times with the data and Gen AI driving this transformation for the industry.
Sumi, I'll come back to you. I want to take off on the, he spoke about data, AI, all of it. So, technology is here to stay. These days you hear about AI, data, automation, everything that's technology driven. Can you give us some examples on how you leverage these technologies? More interestingly, because these have evolved very rapidly. Technology always evolves. We know it keeps changing, but the pace of change has gone crazy now.
Absolutely.
So one is what you've done now, and what do you see yourself doing at Tata AIA for the next 2 years with these technologies?
Okay. Let's stay on the same theme about customer experience and hyper-personalization. Even about a decade back, the way an insurance company would interface with a customer would probably be letters sent over post. Now, today, given that the attention span of the customer is reduced to minutes, if not seconds, we are speaking about that window of time to get the customer's attention. And what does that mean for us? It means that the content which needs to be delivered to the customer is content which is going to appeal to the customer. So the content cannot be, as I said before as well, cannot be one size fits all. It needs to be absolutely tailored to this micro segment of the customer, which could be just one customer. Not just that, it is what medium do you communicate with the customer with, right? So does the customer prefer WhatsApp? Does the customer prefer mail? Does the customer prefer, a branch executive to call the customer? Does the customer prefer a video call and somebody doing a kind of an advisory communication? So communication has gone crazy because it needs to be the content which the customer wants to see, the medium that the customer wants to see, the time of the day that the customer wants to be, connected with. And all of these together is only possible, through the power of insights that we get from customer data, like-minded customers, community of customers, segments, and the likes. So this is one of the big initiatives for us as we kind of move to hyper-personalized interface with the customer, whichever touch point the customer chooses as his or her touch point. The second one is even product offerings, and I think Rishi alluded to it, is kind of going through a phase where it needs to be personalized and unbundled for the customer, right? We need to be able to explain to the customer why this proposition makes sense to this customer. What is it for this customer? What is it in for his or her family, right? Why does it make sense? What is the average persona which looks like this customer doing? And that's the level of personalization which is even going to come over to recommendations that we do to products to drive conversations. And it's great for the industry because the customer ultimately gets what he or she wants, and the industry becomes so much more responsible of selling the product that is meaningful to the customer. So, again, begins and ends with the customer, and technology, AI, data are just enablers for us to kind of move there. I'll just make one more point. Distribution is also going to become far-reaching, right, from the different avenues of distribution that we see. And I guess one of the other things that we in Tata AI have started work is, if there is a partner who wants to integrate with us, how do I remove the entry barrier and help the partner integrate in almost no time with us and start consuming our services and be able to offer our propositions to their customer base? So those would be a couple of instances that we are actively working on now.
I'd really like to say that as a customer, I like what you're kind of saying. The touch points, I don't think too many people are getting them correct.
Yeah.
Rishi, let me come back to you. IBM's working with, again, you would have touched on some of these points when I asked you earlier questions. I'm going to frame it slightly differently. It has been working, enabling companies with, insurance companies with digital transformation, insurance companies. What do you see are going to be the key pertinent technology trends in driving growth for insurance companies going forward, again, next 2 to 3 years?
Yep. So, Soumya spoke about distribution, right? Distribution basically means, having a broad ecosystem, having an ecosystems of partnerships in place, right? I will talk about GenAI and data, but let me first talk about security, right? If the industry has to see growth, I think security is going to be key. Security is going to be one of the most important aspects. As we open up our internal organization to the external world, right? As we open up our internal systems to the external world, we need to be absolutely sure that we are secure, right? If I again have to quote some data points, if you look at the data breach report 2023, each data breach has costed the insurance industry $5.9 million, each data breach. Go back to 2022, the Forrester report. If you sum total all the frauds hitting the insurance industry, right? The sum total is a whopping what $309 billion, right? So security, according to me, is going to be one of the most important aspects which we will need to focus upon. Uh, another trend, cloud. I think cloud has been in existence for long. Many organizations have already adopted the cloud solutions, right? 81% of insurance industries are already on hybrid cloud setups. So, and the reason for it is basically managing scale and managing complexity vis-a-vis the legacy complex on-prem system. So cloud is here to stay. It has been there, it has been in existence for long, and I see the adoption only increasing. Let me now talk about data and analytics. Yep. If I talk to CDOs, the chief data officers across the industry, almost half of it, and again I believe this number is going to increase exponentially. Almost half of it say that they are using data on AI to make business decisions. Data actually drives underwriting decisions. Data. Soumya spoke a lot about customer experience, right? He spoke a lot about personalization. Data drives personalization. How can you have, policies which are very relevant to a persona of customers? So data, according to me, is going to be at the center of this growth. Again, if I talk about AI, no growth discussion will be complete about Gen AI in this, era, right? So, Gen AI, how do we, adoption of Gen AI is going to only increase, right? How do I make, the claims settlement? How do I make the systems more conducive, basically make the systems more simple, in the end impacting customer experience? How can the policies be issued online, right, where Gen AI can impact the underwriting parts of businesses, right? So Gen AI is going to play a role in every aspect of insurance industry, be it claims, be it policy issuance, and and be it the entire operations beat. Gen AI also plays a role. We are all talking about the external part of it, right? The part which is impacting customers. Gen AI can impact internal organizations big time, and there are many use cases where Gen AI can impact. You can transform your HR using Gen AI, right? So if I have to summarize, Gen AI, data, cybersecurity, and cloud, I think these are the top 4 trends which I see being relevant and empowering growth in the next few years.
Thank you, Rishi. Soumya, let's talk of digital first businesses, and Tata AI has partnered with several fintech companies to offer digital first hyper-personalized solutions. How do you see fintechs shape the future of the insurance industry? And since you've tied up, how do you see it, competing with you all at the same time, being complementary to you all? What's Tata AI's perspective in this area?
Okay. Fintechs have brought in a lot of change, a lot of very welcome change, and a lot of disruption, which the industry needed, right? And continues to need. We absolutely, as you rightly said, we partner with a whole gamut of fintech organizations. We are also progressively going to insource a lot of what we would traditionally only rely on our fintech partners, because technology is the one which is going to give us the differentiation to customer service, to really being able to fulfill what the customer needs, right? So going ahead, I guess, it's going to be a mix of what we insource because we've got the right talent in-house, what we partner with fintech organizations, what we potentially co-create with fintech partners. One of the things which is also very relevant in this is, and Rishi alluded to it, the customer's data, some very sensitive data is with us. So whenever we choose fintech partners, the choice is going to be dependent on loads of factors, but one of the very important things is how secure is my customer's information with a partner. And that increasingly is going to be a go, no-go, deal breaker decision when we engage with partners.
We're staying with a lot of data and AI here. So you all have a history of investing in data and AI solutions, not to just understand the customer better, but to enable larger digital businesses. I'm just going to refer to the question here. What challenges or obstacles have you faced in adopting AI and data analytics, and how have you overcome them? What are your future investment plans in terms of AI, data analytics, and related technologies? How do you prioritize these investments?
I think technology, as Hoshi also mentioned, is kind of evolving at an absolutely crazy pace, and it's only going to get better, right, over time. So one of the things for us technologists to internalize is there are going to be glitches. How do I protect customer experience from the impact of any of this as we adopt new technologies? How do we implement learning loops where you do a pilot which is limited to a very small number of customers, and only when that is successful you open it up to a larger set and then a larger set, and then you can probably do that to the whole world. So how do we have a staggered progression, right, of rollout? The concept of Google's perpetual beta, for example. What is also important is the agility and the pace which an organization needs to deal with change which is happening at this crazy pace, right? And lastly, I think it is going to come down to people, right? Technology, you're as good or not as good as the skills that you have in the organization, right? And for us, the priority is to get the right people in the organization, people who are hands-on practitioners, who are the best at their trade, and who are passionate to make a change to the industry and to the customer, right? So people first approach. We will continue to partner, as we said in the last question, with partners as we have done, but people first approach. That's the investment.
That's the flavor that's coming across. Rishi, with the recent IBM Watson X announcement and it being positioned as the AI solution for the industry, how do you all plan to enhance the overall AI experience for enterprises?
I think we are living in very exciting times, right? IBM, according to me, is going to write the next chapter in AI with, with Watson X. Let me go back a bit, right? We are now in the fourth generation of AI. From 2017 to now, the adoption of AI has almost doubled. And if I have to quote the impact AI is going to make on the industry, by 2030, AI is going to add about $16 trillion to the global economy. And if I have to talk about it closer to home, by 2025, about $500 billion are going to be added to India's GDP. And by 2030, this is going to go up to about $967 billion. We have been talking about AI for long, but AI is now truly moving from more of an, if I can call it an education discussion, to truly impacting businesses and truly impacting millions of lives. And what has brought about that change? The biggest impediment to growth of AI was the availability of labeled data, right? With the foundation models now in place, right? I think we are truly at the cusp of historic growth. as far as AI is concerned. And like I said, IBM is writing the next chapter in the history of AI with what's the next. What do organizations really need, right? Organizations, in addition to these models, right, they need access to a full technology stack on which they can build, tune, and run their models on their own trusted data. And most important part is govern all of this. And that's what what's the next really does. If I take the elements of what's the next dot AI is basically a ready-made tool set available to organizations, right, to run these models. Watson X dot data, a data store which feeds into these AI models. And like I said, most important, these models are now proliferating across use cases. They are going across businesses. The adoption, like I said, is only going to increase. So the most important part is governance, right? What's the next dot governance to govern these models and data, right? So IBM is working with organizations across the globe, implementing what's the next for use cases, both which are external to the organization and internal to the organization as well.
Soumya, Gen AI.
Yep.
Okay. No conversation is complete without
Absolutely.
detailed discussion on Gen AI. So, what's your perspective? What's Data AI's perspective? What functions do you all plan to use it for? Is it for claims? Is it for fraud detection? How are you planning to use it in the future? And most importantly, what are the key metrics that you will be using to measure the success of Gen AI deployment?
Absolutely. So, as Rishi very rightly said, Gen AI is now no longer limited to the academia. And it is pretty much, right there for every technology-driven, organization and fintechs across the world. So I'll just give you a couple of use cases that we are actively working on in Tata AIA. The first is, how do I have, I'll just go back. There used to be a concept called pair programming in developer communities, where you would have two people who would collectively write code. And loads of studies have been done. A pair which wrote code was far more effective, far better than code written by single individuals. Now, if we extend that model and if we call it a co-pilot, as the term is, and if I can offer a AI-driven co-pilot to, let's say, an individual who sells, right? So how do I equip the seller with not just recommendation of the product or the proposition which makes the most meaning to the customer? How do I almost give a pitch that the seller can use with the customer, right? And I said before, unbundling recommendations, the pitch needs to be, why am I recommending this proposition to you as a customer? What is in it for you, for your family? Why this and not something else, right? So a co-pilot for sellers, a co-pilot for underwriting, and I think Rishi alluded to it. How do I provide a co-pilot to my underwriters to make decisions real time, to optimize the set of questions which are asked, right? Because, a lot of questions which traditionally insurance companies have asked have been riddled with redundancies, didn't make any sense to be asked to a particular customer. But now with Gen AI, that questionnaire can be generated by AI, and that can be completely tailored to the individual that the underwriter is dealing with, right? Similarly, how do I give a co-pilot assistance to my branch execs, right? If somebody is calling up for a claim, you know that a bereavement has happened in the family. How is there empathy in the conversation, right? How do I give a pitch which makes it so relatable, so personal to the user rather than a commoditized conversation, which is quite the norm in today's world, right? So what we are looking at Gen AI in this stream of use cases is how do I use Gen AI to equip my existing people, whether they are sellers, whether they are underwriting specialists, whether they are branch executives, to do their jobs better. And the metric is productivity, right? We expect productivity to be far higher and the customer experience to be far more positive because you're equipping with so much more insights which otherwise would be impossible, right? In, for example, a 2-minute or a 5-minute question answer session on plain stuff, right? So that's one set of use cases. We already covered hyper-personalization. And I guess, when you've got to generate content for millions of segments of customers, doing it, manually can be a very onerous task. How do I use Gen AI to generate my content, which is personalized down to the last customer of mine, is another use case that we are looking at. So, yeah, all in all, very exciting times. We will use Gen AI to take customer experience to absolutely the next level.
You are a CTO, okay, and there is an invisible industry that's trying to get to everyone. I'm talking of what you spoke about, cybersecurity issues, Rishi. That there is a full unknown industry that works overtime to try and hack in and create issues. Okay, what are you doing in that space? What are the issues that you face, and how do you plan to stay ahead? Because data is at the heart of
Absolutely.
customers at the heart, and customer has to feel secure.
Yeah. I mean, security is probably one of the most important pillars of my job as a CTO. It is my responsibility, my organization's responsibility to ensure that the data which I have about the customer is safe and secure, right? And we have progressively been doing it over the years. What are we doing now is security is not post facto. I mentioned the same thing about compliance. How do I shift left? How do I have every developer in the organization be aware that the code which is kind of going to go in needs to be secure, needs to have vulnerabilities addressed. Continuous scanning of the entire estate, infrastructure, network, all of the artifacts which I have. We are ambitious. We will have continuous remediation. If a scan finds something which is spurious, how do I patch it up immediately and go? And most important stuff, which is especially relevant to us, is we stand on the shoulders of two giants, right? AIA and Tata, who also are doing so much of work in the whole area of cybersecurity. And we are continuously learning from both Tata and AIA as to how to, increase the level of security that we have in our estate.
So we heard a lot about technology. Okay, now I'd like to understand what you do outside of work, besides sleeping, which all of us love to do. So how do you spend your time outside?
I love traveling. I've traveled the length and breadth of India, and I still can't get more of it. I love reading, largely fiction. I love art, and I collect some artists. That's pretty much it.
So I have a follow-up question. How do you manage time? So do you really manage to pursue these things, or
Yeah, very actively.
very active?
Very
So
actively.
this is outside of AI implementation and security threats.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And all of it.
I mean, I still read, 6 to 7 books a month. So
So you read every day.
yes,
Wow. Okay. Rishi, your life is technology. So, outside of that, what happens?
So though I may not look like it now, but I'm an ardent fan of cricket. I play every weekend. Saturday morning is my time to play cricket with a group of my cricket. I call it my cricket gang. So every Saturday morning is cricket, and even now we play a few tournaments. So I just love playing cricket. I love traveling as well, and a big fan of what India has to offer, though I have traveled many countries, but I think in our country, there is so much to see. I prefer mountains, and I prefer to go to mountains and jungles. And that's how I spend my time. Love spending time with my family and friends. They are except cricket, they are an integral part of my travel plans. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, but I gather cricket's the most passionate. So
Yes,
that's
yes.
kind of wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. It was wonderful talking to you all. Increasingly, it's kind of obvious that the customer is at the heart of it, and the customer is getting all the more finicky. Uh, and we are talking about hyper personalization, okay, which did not happen. I think you said, no, that earlier insurance companies used to send letters. Today, every aspect they're choosy about. So, that's what I'm going to kind of take away from it. And technology is going to enable all of it. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.